The 1980s did not start well for Ozzy Osbourne. After being kicked out of Black Sabbath, the Prince of Darkness holed up in an LA hotel room, planning to remain as drunk as possible until his money ran out, and then probably move back to England to work as a laborer. He met future wife Sharon Arden by stealing $500 from her to purchase a profound amount of cocaine. Arden cursed out Osbourne, furious at the loss of money, but then took pity on him. He was crying, soaked in urine, and supernaturally intoxicated, and agreed to help revive his career. Auditions for a new band were arranged. Osbourne was very drunk, but can still recall the day a shy blonde kid came in, Arden telling Ozzy the boy was in a band called Quiet Riot. He plugs in his amp and starts doing these finger exercises. Osbourne remembers in his autobiography I Am Ozzy, and say I almost cried, he was so good. Osbourne was overcome with drink and passed out before the blonde kid had finished playing. But once it was over, Arden told him he had gotten the job. Rhoads had become a fixture of the LA music scene in the mid-1970s. His band The Whore performed at parties at night and practiced in Rodney Bingenheimer's English disco during the day. The band evolved into Quiet Riot and began performing alongside Van Halen. Many rock historians note the influence Rhoads and Eddie Van Halen had on one another, and landed a deal with Japanese CBS or Sony. Unfortunately, the deal prevented the outfit from releasing its first two albums, Quiet Riot and Quiet Riot 2, in the US. So when the opportunity came to join the former Black Sabbath singer's new solo project, Rhoads jumped at the opportunity. The finger exercises that Osbourne had observed in Rhoads were the classical scales that Rhoads had been practicing since a young age. Combining classical guitar playing with metal had been lightly touched upon by 70s guitarists like Deep Purple's Ritchie Blackmore, but had yet to really catch on. The members of Quiet Riot never cared for Rhoads' flirtation with the centuries-old style, but Osbourne and his band were enamored with it, and encouraged Rhoads to utilize it as much as possible. The sound would later become known as neo-classical metal, and would dominate the guitar playing of 1980s metal records. Osbourne discovered a similar creative synergy with Rhoads. In VH1, Behind the Music Ozzy Osbourne, Osbourne laments the songwriting process he had previously endured with Black Sabbath, stating that the band wouldn't involve Osbourne in the creative process, coming up with the music and simply telling the shy singer with an inferiority complex to just sing something atop what they'd done. He said Randy was a teacher. He had a lot of patience. We would bounce off each other. He would later state in his autobiography that with Rhoads, it was the first time I ever felt like an equal partner in songwriting. Sharon said Randy really built up Ozzy's confidence. The two became close friends, and it was the perfect relationship, the perfect partnership. The collaboration paid off with the album The Blizzard of Oz, featuring singles Mr. Crowley and Crazy Train. The album would go on to quadruple platinum status, followed up quickly with Diary of a Madman, which Osbourne describes as his favorite and features much of Rhoads' innovative style of playing. In 1981, Guitar Player magazine presented Rhoads with an award for Best New Talent. In an interview, the shy young man, surrounded by drunken bandmates, was clearly humbled by the honor and said, "It makes you realize there's a lot of responsibility. On this tour I want to get myself together and work hard, because I don't want it to stop here." On the Diary of a Madman tour, Rhoads did work very hard. Osbourne says, at each stop he would pull out the yellow pages and find a classical guitar tutor, while the band members would engage in the kind of partying that would kill a herd of elephants. Rhoads would be off in a hotel room or quiet part of the tour bus, practicing with the tutor. On the way to a show in Florida during the tour, 1 week away from performing Madison Square Garden, Rhoads met with Osbourne at the tour bus's kitchen table at 3 in the morning. It was March 1982. Rhoads said, "I don't think I want to be a rock and roller anymore," explaining that he wanted to enroll in a university to study classical guitar. Osbourne was distraught and angry, finishing his 4th bottle of gin in less than 24 hours. He said, "How could you now? Tomorrow we're playing with Foreigner." Still upset, Osbourne went to bed. The bus rolled on toward Florida. It was a 700-mile drive from Knoxville, Tennessee, where Randy Rhoads had just played his final gig. The next day he would be dead at the age of 25. The following morning, bus driver Andrew Akic, reportedly awake all night on cocaine, made an unscheduled stop at a friend's mansion in Leesburg, Florida, in order to fix the bus's air conditioning. The mansion had an airstrip with a small 55 Beechcraft Bonanza airplane that a hyper Akic was very excited to take for a joyride. Afraid of flying, Rhoads was hesitant when Akic invited him to come along. Rhoads agreed, reluctantly, wanting to indulge his photography hobby with some aerial shots. Once in the air, Akic decided to buzz the tour bus, wanting to give a sleeping Ozzy a good scare. No one knew that Akic's pilot certification had expired. Still drunk from the previous night's gin, and having no idea why the bus had stopped in the first place, Osbourne pulled his wife out of the flaming, torn bus only to see a fireball explode out of a nearby mansion. In attempting to buzz the tour bus, Akic had made contact on the third pass, tearing the fiberglass wing off the plane and crashing it into the top of a pine tree, then into the home of his friend. The band's hairdresser Rachel Youngblood was also in the Beechcraft Bonanza along with Rhoads. All three were killed, their bodies burned to the point of requiring dental record identification.